Hello all. Welcome to our Q&A call today for our upcoming live video course, Life of Grace, the 12-week journey to relax control, dissolve fear, and expand the grace already present in our lives. I'm Ann Patricio, and I'm your host today, and I'm just so grateful to be here with Miranda as we explore her teachings for her upcoming course, Life of Grace, which begins Wednesday, February the 6th at 12 noon Pacific. And I've had the good fortune of being with Miranda Macpherson in live capacity as well as hosting her online events and attending her courses. And I can tell you, she creates such a deep, reverberating sense of peace and shares it deeply with those in her presence. So I'm excited for those of you that will be joining her in this next journey. And I'll be explaining how you can participate in this course, even if you don't think you can attend live sessions. But first, I'm going to bring on Miranda. Miranda Macpherson, one of our beloved faculty here at The Shift, is a contemporary spiritual teacher, counselor, interfaith minister, and author of the newly released The Way of Grace, the transforming power of ego relaxation. We're so excited that she has launched this book. We've been waiting for it. Her work is a synthesis of self-inquiry, spiritual psychology, devotion, and meditation practices offered with a feminine grace that embraces our everyday human experience as a gateway into the depths of our true nature. In just a few minutes, you're going to have a moment to ask Miranda your questions. But first, I want to welcome her here, and she's going to guide us in an opening meditation. Welcome, Miranda.
Thank you, Anne, and welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to be here with you and really excited to open up the field and respond to the questions that matter most to you. But before we go into that, let's settle ourselves into the present moment and open up the field of grace so that we can get as much out of our time together as possible. So wherever you are, just put everything else aside and prioritize the immediacy of this moment right here and now. So turn your focus inwards and bring your awareness to your own breath, feeling as if each inhale is literally a welcome. Welcome into your own body. And welcome deeper into your own soul. An unconditional welcome into the core of your being. And consider every exhale as a natural letting go. Not by pushing anything away, not by rejecting any part, but in the same way that your exhale is just an effortless, natural yielding. So let your whole being yield. Letting muscle tension that doesn't need to hold on naturally start to let go. Seeing if the following of thoughts can melt into the past. And feel yourself naturally being drawn into your very center. And contemplate what causes you to be here. You might feel drawn by what you've heard so far or your experience of me in various recordings. You may be curious. But if you take that question, what causes you to be here, really deep, it really invites you to recognize that not only are you drawn to listen to this, show up for this hour we have together, but what causes you to be interested in the spiritual path at all, what causes you even to exist, to be alive, is this living presence that has known us and loved us all the days of our life. This animating force that causes your heart to breathe, causes you to want to wake up, and that this cause of your being is grace, and that your life is already blessed. So right here and now, as you let your exhale melt and let go, feel as if you are just melting, letting go back into the cause of your being. Letting your worries and concerns melt back into the cause of your being. Melt into the cause of all being. And receive a felt sense of being cherished and loved and held naturally in and part of that cause.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful practice, Miranda. I appreciate it. So we're going to spend the rest of our time together here exploring your questions for Miranda as we prepare for her upcoming course, Life of Grace, which begins Wednesday, February the 6th at 12 noon. And I'd like you to check out the website. You'll be able to learn more about this 12-week course, and you'll also find a link to register. So please visit lifeofgracecourse.com. That's lifeofgracecourse.com, and you'll see a full description. Scroll to the bottom to register. Now let's get started. If you have a question for Miranda, feel free to type it in, and I'll be happy to read it out. We've received many questions ahead of time from our webcast, and I can see those of you typing in and sending your questions already. So we'll try to get to as many as we can in this next time together. So I'll start with one that we received from our webcast. This course is unique from your other offerings that you've taught, and I'd love to hear you share a bit about what was the incentive for you to create, or impetus for you to create this course in particular?
Well, grace is my favorite subject, and I feel that it's what we so need in these times that for many of us, most people I know, the pace of life is so intense, and the multitasking that we're all doing with email and keeping up with social media and our family and holding down a job, and life can easily become overwhelming. And so I'm interested not just in people experiencing grace, relaxing back into the foundation of their being and really knowing that directly as a loving goodness that can nourish and help us stay grounded and present and stabilized inside, but how we can really learn to walk through life from that depth of being, learn to embody a more graceful way of being as we walk this world. Now, of course, that is very advanced because many traditions classically, saw spiritual work happening in monasteries and ashrams, and I feel that it's a lot harder in our modern contemporary society to really stay grounded in that which doesn't change and is never rocked, while we open our heart to the fact of great uncertainty in our world and change and the need to kind of somehow find a way to be graceful with that and not devolve into fear and our strategies of control. So I thought that it would just be extremely practical and helpful to people, and that it would also serve them, those people who are reading my book, The Way of Grace, which I recently published through Sounds True, to really kind of put it into action in our daily life and to have a forum to really do that together.
Thank you so much. Dorian is asking, can you tell us a bit more about the special mantra that you mentioned on the call? The intro call is what Dorian's referring to.
Yeah. Well, there's various aspects of my personal spiritual practice that I share, and some things that haven't kind of been ready to share yet. And the Mahalakshmi mantra, which I'm going to be sharing specifically, is a very, very powerful practice for really resolving deeply that felt sense of lack and not having enough. And it also brings a deep amplification for our most sincere prayers. And it brings online a powerful felt sense of being able to receive right down into our bones what it is that we most need, both spiritually on the inner level and also practically in terms of the help we need to live more gracefully and to navigate the challenges of our personal experience in life. So this is something that I personally have been working with quite powerfully in the last 12 months, and it's been deepening and expanding in me, and I felt right that this is the time to share it. So I'm excited. I'll be going into the recording studio to specifically record the mantra, and then I'll be layering in, as part of this course, the transmission of it that includes a guided meditation together with the mantra. And even people that have been studying with me for a very long time, they will have not had this because I haven't shared it yet. This will be the first time I'm sharing it. I'm really excited to, because I think it's going to help open everyone to really receive that abundant, nourishing nectar that fills us from the inside and helps us to recognize that we actually do have all the support we need to walk more gracefully through our world.
Thank you so much. And thanks to Dorian for that question. R. Jeremy is asking, does the term grace, as you use it, relate to inherent Buddha and Christ?
Well, if you look at all the great spiritual traditions, some of them use the term grace and some don't. So, for example, the Christian tradition, the Sufi tradition, and also in the yogic Vedantic tradition, they use the word grace liberally to mean the felt sense of divine blessing, divine presence entering our midst. In Tibetan Buddhism, they don't necessarily use the word grace, and they don't necessarily have an understanding of a deity or a supreme deity, Godhead. However, in Vajrayana Buddhism in particular, there are countless practices that help us open to the grace of bodhisattvas, such as Tara. And so even in traditions where the cosmology doesn't language the word grace, it's there. And so that's why I partly want to bring that forward, mostly because I think that grace really is the missing key for truly gaining traction on our spiritual path. Because the simple fact of the matter is we need help to really walk the spiritual path with depth and substance, and to address the things that we truly need help with, to address those habits of closure, to really get to the root of what causes us to contract and to push and manipulate our way through life, the things that we need help allowing healing with, the things we need to meet with deeper compassion. And also just on the practical level, there is grace to help us to walk the path and apply the teachings in our daily life with all the situations that we find ourselves in. And so I really want to bring that alive and share how we can make it more practical with whatever it is that we're working with. And for wherever we are on the path, there's grace to help us. So I'm wanting to really bring that alive. And for those people that have been studying with me before, you perhaps already know, if you've been reading my book, then grace really has 4 primary dimensions or ways that it comes online to help us. And in this particular course, I'm going to be opening up those 4 dimensions, fresh nuances of how we can experience the underlying grace that is the cause of our being, or what Buddhism would call the ground of being. How we can open to receive the blessings of grace, the very particular kinds of nourishment and healing and divine qualities that fulfill and nourish our soul. The grace that helps us to transform obstacles, helps us to truly cross over to the other shore in our consciousness, to open to the miraculous healing that comes as we engage the time-tested spiritual technologies such as forgiveness and witnessing awareness and so forth. But what it takes to become graceful in the ordinariness of our life so that we become more stable in our deeper being and learn to open our heart to all that life brings and respond wisely and with compassion to the situations that present ourselves, and ultimately serve to become a more graceful human being in our world. And I would say that, we're all transmitting the quality of our consciousness all the time in everything that we think and do and say. And yet, obviously, when we're not awake to our deepest nature, when we're caught in our ego obscurations and hurts and fears and history, then what's coming out of us is less than graceful because it's occluded by suffering and ignorance and obstacles. And really what needs to happen is there to be more of us who are less occluded, who are more transparent to our nature, who are more yielded and surrendered and open and available, so that what comes out of us is less of a bad smell and more of an exquisite fragrance.
Thank you for that, Miranda. Catherine is asking how to get rid of anger due to her daughter's death. It seems like I get a weird response from people when I speak to them, and then anger comes up, then I'm short with them, and this isn't me or didn't used to be me.
Yeah. Well, anger is not an easy one, and yet it is part of our human condition. And so my view on anything that we classically think of as egoic or as an impediment is really coming from a very deeply integrated understanding of non-duality, which really means that at the basement of everything, there's really only God, okay? And so even your anger belongs to God. If you think of it, that everything that exists is a manifestation within the one unified fabric of being, and that therefore all parts of you are holy. And so when we have a reaction, and anger is a reaction, yes, it might have distortion and suffering and hurt and judgment in it, but at the deepest level, reaction contains information too. So the work of ego relaxation, which is the primary practice that I share with you throughout everything I offer, invites you how to settle into your direct experience, even when anger is here, and go kindly and compassionately towards your direct experience and really meet it, listen to it, feel it, open to what's true within your direct experience. Now, when we practice ego relaxation with anger, for example, we usually meet the layers of hurt that are there, because the etymology of the word anger from the Greek means of grief. This is where the word grievance, when you're angry at someone, you have a grievance with them, where that comes from. And so that tells us a little more about what often underneath anger is. There's some hurt there. There's something that's painful. And anger is the sort of the agitation on the outer part of that. And so what often we most need help with is to go towards the grief, the hurt under our anger with support, with kindness, with compassion, so we can allow some healing to take place and to allow the natural relaxing out of the hurt and move through it, become more genuinely resilient. And that's not a strategy, and it's not just a hit word, as resilience is a sort of a popular word these days everyone's using, but that truly our nature itself is, has the capacity to move beyond difficulties and to then allow the moving through those difficulties to not just be something we get over, but to birth more wisdom and more understanding of the human condition. And so the beautiful thing about learning to open even to our anger and meet it fully with an open and curious heart, and to learn how to be present and undefended with it, it deepens us as a human being. It makes us wiser with others and their suffering. And it really serves us, makes us a more graceful, spiritually mature, and very beautiful human being. So I encourage you not to think of pushing away your anger, but bringing the kindness of your heart towards it and just learning to be there. And this is something we will be practicing very much in our time together if you join the course.
Great. So if you're just joining us, we're here with Miranda Macpherson as she answers questions about her upcoming course, Life of Grace, which begins on Wednesday, February the 6th at noon Pacific. And you can log on to lifeofgracecourse.com for all the details and to register. I want to thank everyone for bringing such beautiful and thoughtful questions forward today. You can continue to type them in, and I'll bring them forward from Miranda. Here's one from Marcel. I'm a psychotherapist who's been practicing for 2 years. When I'm working with clients and we're going deeper, or I believe venturing into vulnerable topics, I feel myself getting nervous and have a tendency to use more telling versus inquiry. I feel as my own vulnerability that it is a barrier. I'm very aware of this, but can't seem to break free of this pattern.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marcel. And, many people who are therapists really love my work because it embraces the importance of our psychological material rather than thinking of that as something that needs to be transcended. And I believe that in order to really live an embodied spiritual life, we must include our psychological material. And one of the things that usually helps us when we're working with others is obviously our countertransference comes up. And it sounds from what you're saying there that there's some kind of anxiety that arises in you. Maybe that's not so, but if it is, then what I would suggest is some of the sensing practices like the mountain of presence, or just learning how to sense your body energy and feel your own breath rising and falling, and to encourage yourself to just practice ego relaxation, just being there, doing nothing, trusting the presence that brought you to sit with somebody, and also trusting your training as you just sit with them and give them more space. And remember that beautiful principle that less is often more is likely to help you. But of course, I would invite you also to be curious about what is the driver of you preaching or speaking too much or coming in too soon, not giving your client enough space, and to be really curious about that rather than judge yourself about it. And again, those people who've worked with me know that's a real hallmark of the way I work, is if we refuse to judge ourselves for the egoic habits and ways we trip ourselves up, then the superego can't grab us by the short and curlies and use us as an opportunity to just make us feel bad. Instead, we can bring that loving interest of our heart, like, wow, how come I do that? What's the driving force behind it? What do I fear would happen if I didn't do that? Or what feeling arises if I don't follow that impulse? And could I just stay present and feel that feeling? Be it anxiety or concern that they're going to think you don't know what you're doing. I hope what I've shared is helpful.
Beverly has a wonderful question. I am a Richard Rohr type Christian. Will I fit in with your course? Will mantras fit in with my Christian spirituality?
Yes, I really hope so. And just to let you know, I'm a huge fan of Father Richard Rohr and love what he's doing. My classical training is as an interfaith minister. And so I am not asking anybody to take on a belief system or abandon something that has been proven to be true and important for you. So the way that I'm going to teach the Lakshmi mantra is to really open to that nectar, that luminosity that if you're a practicing Christian, I would invite you to think of as Christ presence. Because ultimately, it's the same thing. It's that felt sense of that infinite love, that infinite generosity, that infinite care that wants to give you, a human soul, absolutely everything that you need to thrive. And so that part of the teaching is going to be about how you and I, how we can all come into deeper receptivity. I will be teaching you the mantra, but if you want to substitute Christ as we work with that mantra, that is totally fine by me. So I will address that because I want to make sure that wherever people are coming from, spiritually speaking, that they can find a way to work with this material without feeling any kind of unnecessary conflict with their beliefs. And as an interfaith minister, I know that that's possible. So I hope that helps put your mind at rest and know that you can be welcome to be here as a practicing Christian.
Thanks, Beverly, for bringing that question forward. I have one from Kay. I have a lot of stress in my life right now. It's affecting my health and my self-worth. How can I deal with this?
Well, I'm sorry to hear that there's a lot of stress, Kay, but that's every reason why we need grace. One of the real reasons for stress when it becomes really untenable, when we really look at it deeply, has a lot to do with very foundational issues of fear and control, which is something that I'm going to address very thoroughly in the beginning of this course. I don't know about you, but when I look at the times when I feel stressed or overburdened or overwhelmed, and I really explore who is it that's feeling that stress, who is it that's getting overwhelmed, what I notice in myself is that I find this little voice that says, I'm overwhelmed. And if I go towards that I with curiosity, I see that it's a historically based personality, an identity, that believes I'm all alone and I somehow have to cope with this or figure it out myself. Well, I think we all know how that feels because I have to figure it out on my own, but I don't quite know how, or it's too much, is a very, very familiar experience for most of us. But what we want to do is to bring that felt sense of being a separate somebody who has to figure it out but can't and is therefore stressed, to rest in deeper ground, to remember that something caused you to be here that had nothing to do with this self that's stressed. Somehow the mystery of life brought you into being, is causing your heart to pump, is inviting you to take a breath, is providing fresh, nourishing oxygen for you through the plant kingdom. And that there's this cause of your being and all being that is trying to help you, trying to bring you back into the flow of what will truly help address these difficulties in your life right now. Now, I can't tell you how that will happen, but I'm kind of a specialist at inviting you to come back to the one solution. The solution is turning your consciousness deeper back into God and letting go in the felt sense of the holding and the support that's always here. Now, I've practiced this for myself in times of immense stress, in times where everything familiar was falling away, in times where I really didn't have a clue. And so I know from my own experience that while this seems very esoteric and mystical, ironically, it has the most practical power to help us find a more easeful, harmonious, less stressful way of being in and amidst daily life. Because it brings us back into the flow, brings us out of resistance, brings us back into the flow, and helps us to feel that pulse of wisdom and of guidance that is trying to shepherd us, shepherd our life in a direction that is truly for the best. So I hope what I've said is helpful to you, and I also hope you join us and that you receive as much support as you need to tackle these challenges in your life.
So everyone, we're having just a little technical difficulty with Miranda's sound. We're going to reconnect with her in just a moment. So I'm going to give you just a little information that many of you have been asking about, and it's always good for me to share anyway. So before we take your questions, I just want to give you some of the details on Life of Grace. So as you can tell from hearing Miranda share, I feel it in my body and my presence. This is just going to be a deeply nourishing 12 weeks under Miranda's guidance, where you're going to deeply relax into the blessings that surround you, that you may not even be aware of, but they're here all the time. This 12-week course will take place on Wednesdays at noon Pacific, and that starts February the 6th. Now, if any reason you're unable to join us live, don't worry, you won't miss the teachings. You receive audio and video replays, written transcripts of all course sessions, and handouts, deepening practices, or homework. We call the homework deepening practices here. And I'd like to remind you that we offer a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks. That means in this course up until February the 20th to make sure you absolutely love this course. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect to a private Facebook community group where you can stay connected and really share your experiences with one another. It's a beautiful way to do the course with others. Everyone who registers receives the Life of Grace bonus collection. And this is a beautiful package that Miranda's offering. Walking the Mystical Path with Depth and Substance. This is an audio dialogue with Miranda and Russ Hudson of the Enneagram. Guided meditations. These are a set of 2 audio meditations from Miranda Macpherson. The Mountain of Presence, which I personally think is an extraordinary meditation, as well as Vast Heart, Vast Mind. Introduction to a Holistic Self-Inquiry, a video from Miranda and Neil Rogan, and also Mantras for Awakening. These are audio recordings from Miranda. You get 2 of those mantras to use and listen to and work with as you're doing this course and well beyond. So also, for those of you that know you want to step in and take this journey with Miranda, and those of you that register by midnight Pacific, Thursday, January the 31st, you'll receive this very special audio bonus gift, Landing in Grace. It's a video with Miranda, and it's an opening talk that Miranda gave at a live retreat, and it's 45 minutes, beautifully filmed on Grace. You're going to love this exquisite offering from Miranda. She wanted to offer it as special to those of you that were ready to step in with her, and that deadline is midnight Pacific, Thursday, the 31st. So we're going to take a couple more questions. And so I want to make sure Miranda's with us. And we have a question. Wonderful. Thank you. So we have this question. I have recently been able to accept the divine feminine in me. However, I experience fear of its demands and its expectations of me. I look forward to hearing from you about this. Loving kindness.
Well, I mean, I'm curious what you think the divine feminine expects of you. And I would invite you to, just open to that directly and to really see, as far as I'm concerned, what the divine, whether we relate to that as Christ presence, as the divine feminine, as Buddha nature, as the Holy Spirit, or as just the mystery itself, what the divine wants and needs from us most is just our sincerity, our willingness to be genuine as we walk the path. I don't think that much more than that is required, because it's not about becoming anything different, really. It's about relaxing back into the deepest truth of your nature and learning to surrender anything in you that is not really serving. So usually what that does is it just challenges our attachments and our identifications and, our self-images. But you're not your self-image, and, all the blessings and the goodness come as you learn to let go, trust, surrender, and allow your true nature to shine forth. That brings all the goodness that you could possibly need. And the support is there for that process to happen elegantly in you.
Thank you for that. We have several questions to this line, with people sharing just very close to what Jill is sharing. If past trauma is so acute that it is impossible to deeply feel into the body, what do you recommend? And we have other questions like this, with people sharing that they're in fear, deep inability to move forward, and the fear is just overtaking them. So thank you for speaking to that.
Yeah, there's two things that I have found in my work with people over 30 years that really help the most in dealing with trauma that's still active, and that is somatic-based practices, particularly practices that bring us out of our thoughts into our felt experience, such as the mountain of presence, which is not a visualization. It seems like it might be, but it's not. It's actually about learning to somatically come in and down and feel and recognize that you're held by the chair, you're held by the ground, you're held by the earth, and ultimately you're held by that which causes all of the earth and all of life. You're in and part of that always. And so it's really working deeply with those meditations over time, as well as leaning into the evidence for love's presence and learning to receive that. And so on every course that I do, and this will be no exception, we're learning to open to the fact of love's presence here and now. That even though we might have had some very painful, very difficult experiences in our history, there is love to help us to deal with that honestly, kindly, and thoroughly. And this is also where my transmission really serves a great deal. So the transmission is a hard thing to describe, but it's a felt sense of presence that helps to cut through that physical, visceral sense of being alone, unmet, and unsupported. So when you're in a trauma response, your consciousness has reverted back to a memory where your felt experience was the love, the support isn't here, and the difficulty, that experience was way more than you could tolerate. And so it's through our contact, my gaze with you, my presence with you, that I really want you to feel accompanying you on the journey, that can give you a whole other level of possibility to stay present in your body and feel what's there in a way that's manageable. And actually let that become a portal to really what's here underneath that trauma. Because when it's fully digested, it doesn't become an obstacle anymore. Actually, it turns into be a tremendous gate for all kinds of gifts, and usually healing gifts that can come through us that serve others. So the other thing about how I work with trauma is the inclusion of mantras. And so these powerfully help to settle our frightened ego. They start to change our consciousness. They're very particular mantras that have been worked out many years ago that have particular effects on the subtle body. And so they help to soothe and quiet and calm down our over-agitated system. And so this together with the work of inquiry, where we're going towards our fear and the forces behind our fear, we're going towards what causes us to contract and control and the identity within that, all these three things together make for a very powerful and balanced and supportive way to work with that material, not push past it, but to work kindly with it in a way that is healing and helpful.
Great. So, Miranda, you're saying that even for people who are very, very deeply disconnected from their bodies, that still just trusting the process with you, still doing the practices, even if they don't feel that it's going deeply into their bodies, they should persevere with that?
Well, yeah, but also reach out for support. And that's why we provide these forums that we do with the Facebook. And in my courses, I have 4 trained and skilled assistants who are there in the breakout rooms, who are available if something happens when you're in inquiry to step in and support you. And, 3 out of those people are trained trauma therapists. So they're very experienced, not only in my work, but in Peter Levine's work and other approaches to being with people when they're activated in a fear response. So I put a great deal of attention into making sure that the support is as deep as it can be. And also, at each gathering, each class, we have at least half an hour of question and answer where I can work with you if you're really in something that's difficult for you. And also every 3rd or 4th session is an extended satsang session where we spend a full hour with me just working with you. And frankly, I'm the kind of teacher that really loves that. I love nothing more than rolling my sleeves up and being there with you and helping you navigate and turn those places that you're scared of or that are difficult for you into profound gateways for liberation. So bring it on, is what I say. Really what I'm asking from participants is their sincerity and their genuineness. And all that any of us can do is bring that to whatever spiritual path or practice that we work with. And the rest is really in the hands of God.
So wonderful to hear about the support that you offer in the course. I know that that's deeply received by everyone listening today. So thank you for that, Miranda. Linda is sharing that she struggles with meditation. She'd like to have deeper instruction, has such a desire to be free.
Beautiful. I really love that. And you're not alone. Many people who've been meditating for years, maybe finding themselves sitting on their meditation cushion, but just sort of bumbling around in their thoughts and not quite sure, am I meditating or is this just a bit of a waste of time, So I'm really glad that you asked that question, and I want to give more nuanced instruction in your meditation. And one of the things we're going to do when we begin this course, the very first module, I'm going to invite you to just inquire into, if you have a regular spiritual practice of meditation, what are you noticing? What's happening there for you? And just to be really honest about that so that we can discuss that together and help you to bring more focused attention. Often with our meditation, it's either that we haven't yet established a regularity, and so that's a little bit like, trying to run a 10K race. If you haven't been, running around the block a few times a week, it's not going to work very well. Or maybe sometimes there's more clarity that you need. to bring more focused attention to your meditation. So I'll be addressing that. And in a certain part of the course, I'm going to give a couple of specific meditations. One of them is about how to begin your meditation practice, opening to what I call a celestial helping hand. And this has been incredibly beautiful. I've been sharing this with my more advanced students recently, and I've noticed that in everyone, it has really ignited something new opening up in a very beautiful way in their meditation practice, even for people that have been meditating for many years. And it's also served as a beautiful way for people who are newer to meditation to really let their heart, their devotion, power their meditation practice. And I personally believe that that's the key, that the engine of any spiritual practice that we engage has to be our heart's deep love, our heart's love for God, our heart's love for the real. And I can feel that your heart is very sincere. And so I hope you join us.
Great. Peter, I would love to hear more information on unity consciousness.
Well, what do you want to know, Peter? I could talk about that for hours and hours. The word non-duality is really referencing that. And, the deepest understanding that is to be found in all of the great mystical teachings of the traditions of the world has that understanding that at the depths of things, there's really only the one. There's nothing but grace, really. And you and I and everything and everyone is already in and part of the divine, only we don't know it. And so that's usually what our suffering is. We're not awake to the fact that God is present and God's grace is with us always. And so we suffer and we struggle because of that. But I like to think of it as if maybe this image might help you. If you were to see in your mind's eye an infinite matrix of infinitely interconnected window panes that goes on into infinity. And so you and I and all creatures, everything and everyone, is a window pane within this divine matrix of unity, the Godhead, right? We're already in it, we're already part of it. But we are a window pane of God. And so just like a window in your house, the job of a window pane is to let the light in. So the true task of your soul is to be clear, to let the light, divine light, and all of its qualities to move through you, to shine through you, so that God, reality, truth, can shine and extend more fully and deeply into life, extend itself. And so we all know that some window panes are very boarded up, very occluded, or have a lot of muck or dust over them. And so you can imagine that when a window pane is boarded up, the light doesn't get through very much, does it? Hardly at all. When it's got a lot of dust or mud on it, the light gets through partially and it's opaque. And so the work, spiritually speaking, is to remove the obstacles, to see the habits of mind, the conditioning, the places where we contract in fear and control, the places where we resist and say, no, not this, the places where we can't let in, we can't receive, the places where we're caught in some hurt or heartbreak or grievance that keeps us stuck in a particular pattern of hurt or anger or suffering or judgment. All of this represents the stuff, the window pane, the things that are covering up the window pane. So I hope this has been helpful for you, the way I'm describing it. But the important thing to know is that as we meet all of those obscurations honestly, kindly, with compassion, we learn to stay present in our bodies, with love, with empathy, without judgment, to really be patient with what we find, not to push or reject or resist. We start to become clarified, we become more open, the light shines through us, and we experience life as a lot more joyful and light-filled and fulfilling and meaningful. And that's really the point, is this inner work helps us to live a more meaningful life and to give a meaningful contribution to others, our family, our friends, and the world at large.
Thank you so much. We have just a couple more questions, time for these. What does transmission mean?
Well, I kind of said something very early on today about how in any moment you're giving off a transmission. Like I joked about it, that we're either transmitting a heavenly fragrance or a bad smell or something in between, right? So we're all transmitting the quality of our consciousness through every gaze, everything we say, everything we do, and the quality of our presence that is just coming off us, which is why when you meet somebody, even before you've gotten to know anything about them, you feel them, so to speak. What you're feeling is the transmission, is the sum total of their consciousness and its effect. And so when I say the transmission that comes through me, what I'm really meaning is the quality of my practice and all the blessings that I've received over the years from my teachers, and my total love for you, and my complete faith that whatever you have been through, whatever difficulties you have had to tolerate in your life, what I know in my bones is that freedom and love and clarity and joy and peace is your birthright. It really is. And that I have sat with people enough over 30 years to see things really start to turn around for them consistently. And so I really trust that that can happen for each and every one of us. And I am utterly devoted to giving whatever I possibly can to serve that taking place for each and every one of you who chooses to work with me. And so when you say yes to study with me, know that I say yes to helping you. That's how this works. And the more sincere you are, the more I naturally just start musing on how I can serve you, what I can bring forth that will be healing and helpful to your soul at this time. And that's often how I wake up in the morning, really, is in prayer. How can I serve? What's the magic little inquiry question that's going to unlock that little bit of suffering in there, that's going to open the gate for you to know that love is here, goodness is here, you're okay, you can relax.
Thank you so much.
It's not an easy one to answer in a concrete way.
Oh, you're doing a fabulous job. Thank you so much. Marie wants to know how this course is going to be different from your Way of Grace course.
Well, I've run two distinct courses with the title The Way of Grace, a shorter one and a longer one. And if you've worked with me so far, then you'll know that everything that I share has as its foundations the practice and transmission of ego relaxation, which is what true surrender really comes down to, learning to be present and undefended with everything. However, ego relaxation is a very nuanced practice, and even if you've been studying with me for 10 years and you've come to every single retreat I've ever done and done any online courses, I guarantee you that it will be new. And I know that because people who have actually been with me for that long keep telling me it's always fresh, it's never boring and stale. And it's also because I'm not scripting what I teach. I don't look at my notes. I'm in the moment sharing what's coming online through me to you. So there'll be freshness to it, even though we will be covering some of the principles that you might already be familiar with. We will be looking more specifically at fear and control. When we looked at this in previous courses, I kind of blended them together. We're going to pull them apart a little bit and go much deeper than we have. I haven't shared the specific focus on receiving the blessings yet. The way that I've shared them previously has been as part of something called the Pillars of Awakening, but I haven't shared the Lakshmi mantra, I haven't shared the shower of grace meditation, the specifics of how that really works. And the teachings that are given on forgiveness before, I'll be giving a whole other depth to it on this program, because I went deeper and further when I was writing that chapter of my book recently, and challenged myself to bring forth something on forgiveness that I hadn't seen anywhere else, that would truly help us to deal with that very tough terrain that we all go through when things go south in our human relationships, the most important relationships. So it will be more explicitly mystical in those dimensions. And all I can say to you is that it'll be fresh. There'll be more for you. So don't think that because this course has grace in the title, that it's just same old, same old. That's not who I am.
That's for sure. This has been such a wonderful hour. I want to thank everyone for being with us today and for all your beautiful questions. Life of Grace starts Wednesday, February the 6th. And again, you can visit lifeofgracecourse.com to learn more, to register. And for those of you that jump in by January 31st, Thursday, midnight Pacific, you will receive that beautiful video bonus, Landing in Grace. Miranda, it'd be lovely to have you guide us in a short closing practice before we close the call.
Yeah. Well, I would like to share a reading that I shared with my advanced students last night. And it so sums up the real invitation here that I'm offering you. It's by Hafiz, and it goes like this. Just sit there right now. Don't do a thing. Just rest. For your sense of separation from God is the hardest work in this world. Let me bring you some trays of food and something that you like to drink. You can use my soft words as a cushion for your head. Be nothing. Do nothing, get nothing, become nothing, seek for nothing, relinquish nothing. Just be as you are. Rest in God. Rest in God.
Thank you for that, Miranda. Are you complete, or is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners before we close?
Well, I just want to say to people to just trust your deepest heart. And you will know. You'll know if this feels right for you. And I have faith that your heart knows intuitively what's right for you. So trust that and be well. And if you choose not to join this course, then buy my book, The Way of Grace, and receive what's there. And most of all, turn into that cause of your being that is infinite love, and remember that you're not alone.
Deep gratitude to you, Miranda.
Welcome. It's a joy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. On behalf of all of us here at the Shift Network, I wish you well, and we look forward to having you on this course or on one in the future. Be well.